when we talk about the state of Last Free Nation, I mean, this is kind of what we stand for, guys, because this all goes back to some very pivotal things that happened in the early days of when we founded this company in 2022. Is that, first off, we suffered from basically the collapse of the venture capital markets because we obviously didn't get funding when we thought we would, even though we are a media company and typically media companies don't receive venture capital or it's a lot harder. It became basically
we were offered funding.
We're getting to that. But I mean, like the venture capital market, not from venture capital in the traditional way. I mean, we thought we had a deal, lined up, and unfortunately, because people moved their money, rich people moved their money out of VC in 2022. Nobody was actually getting money out of VC in 2022, much less us, because again, we were a media company. There's kind of obviously like having the next Uber app can make you a lot more money than a media company, which is why they tend to, invest in tech companies or things that have like bigger home run potential, even though obviously our floor was much higher because we had, large viewership and podcast companies kind of have known revenue. And to Richard's point, we did actually have some money set up for funding because Faceit wanted to invest in us. But then what happened was that was prior to the acquisition by the Saudi government. And then the acquisition by the Saudi government happened and we decided not to basically take that money. But I mean, we had talked to Faceit pretty extensively before that time. And I was totally down to do it because I like Faceit as a company. But under the new ownership structure, that was not really going to be on the table.
We would have been part of the Death Star. We would have been out there creating podcast content where it's like, and today's sponsor, well, bloody hell, it's Mohammed bin Salman again. Inshallah, the Crown Prince. That's what we would have been doing. That's what we would have been doing.
So we're glad things happened the way it did, but it did make for...
we would have been millionaires for doing it. I want to make that part clear as well. You wouldn't understand how much money
Richard,
we want.
We just delayed being millionaires. Don't worry about it.
Wiping the tears with the hundreds. I still my integrity was so
bloody
terrible.
Hell. Someone on Reddit, Elite Sniper Wolf 420 on Reddit is calling me a hypocrite. Bloody hell. But me personally, I just didn't have it in me.
No, it's fine. We're glad we took our own way. But so you guys know, we're still owned by the talent. We didn't take any kind of investment. And even though this has been the harder path, especially because, I didn't know how to run a podcast company 2.5 years ago. I do know now how to do it. I had to learn it. I had some help with some extremely great advisors who were very instrumental to helping build our business.
Step one, walk away from millions. Step two, pray for more millions.
But the thing about the podcast advertising business is that it tends to move very slowly because you have to do a test with a company. And what they do is they come in and they say, well, we're going to buy one ad on one show, one ad per month on one show for 3 months. And if it goes well, then we're going to start to buy more. And then if that goes well, then we'll start to go out to your other shows and buy ads on those. So it just takes time for it to for brands to trust you. And you guys and your support of our sponsors has been absolutely instrumental to the growth of LFN. And,
absolutely.
Just so you guys are aware, Thorin and I have we have taken very little money out of this company. And the vast majority of the revenue has gone to the other talent that we have. We put them first very deliberately. And I think this year, 2025, is going to be extremely good for us at LFN because of the spot we're in right now with our advertising partners and everything like that. But it took a long time to get here. And we're trying to do other things too because we appreciate your direct support, like rebuilding the website to provide... We didn't want to provide 1 million Patreons, guys, for like each individual podcast. We wanted to do it as a brand so that we can have one subscription for all of our content. We can do more, Q&As, other paywalled content that, everything that's free right now will still be free. But we want to provide additional value to you guys who are our Discord subscribers right now. That will change and become better. We want to launch our own merchandise this year. We've already started that process. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming up. And, frankly, we want to expand into other esports. We want to expand into other non-esports areas as well that we haven't had the time to do. And I talked about on SI how I need to take a step back from being involved in the day-to-day of League of Legends because it was basically taking 40 hours of my week to watch VODs and be an expert on the game from all these games from around the world. And the problem is that I can't do that and take care of my family and take care of this business at the same time. And people ask the I think legitimate question. Well, Monty, why do you have to do that? Why can't you just hire somebody to take control of the business instead of doing the League of Legends stuff? And I said, my answer to that is this, which is that there is nobody who, first off, can do the business end as well as I can, because I am literally the only person on earth who knows the podcast business in esports. I'm the only person. And secondly, because I am going to take far less money to run the business than any CEO we could hire for this company.
I always say we're essentially now operating like it's a startup. What we're doing it like you're doing a startup is the founders, ideally, if they're programmers and stuff, use their labor in the short term without asking a massive salary because it's a startup and they have equity. So yeah, we're doing that at the moment, basically.
Like basically my pay for this year, guys, is going to be the scraps that are left over when we pay everybody else. Okay. So like no one else is going to take that deal. Effectively, who is an expert who can do these things. And because it has now taken me a couple of years to get into a position where I can command the business side of things, that's the problem, is that people view it from the outside as me being irreplaceable on the League of Legends talent front. But the reality is that even if those shows take a hit from me not being on them, my ability to expand the network by having more time to get more talent from other games and start those projects up, combined with, frankly, me just working on more business stuff, is going to lead, we think it's going to lead to more money, right? To offset, potential. And honestly, I'm not even sure that the viewership will be affected, because we already started experimenting with me not being on League of Legends shows last year, and the viewership didn't move, guys. It didn't fucking move. So I'm not even sure it is going to affect anything, or the effect. We don't know how big the effect is going to be. So the other aspects of this is that I'm not stopping doing this show. We're going to increase frequency of this show, because I can do this without having to watch 40 hours of League of Legends a week, right? I can pay attention to esports.
Who the fuck wants to watch 40 hours of League of Legends a week? By the way?
Not me, Richard, is the answer.
Who the fuck? Like, here's the aspect to that. Like, I mean, honestly, like, and for what?
Well, I mean... there were good reasons to do it in the past, including my own enjoyment.
When you're being hired to share your expertise and that kind of stuff, yeah.
Well, no, or to build the company. And it's not like I dislike esports or dislike analysis. I chose that career for a reason. But it was also, Richard, really fucking up my personal life. So, for example, my kids are off on the weekend, but basically on Sundays, I had to spend my entire day streaming League of Legends analysis and watching VODs, because I had shows starting first thing Monday morning where I had to watch, I had to be updated on these games. And then I had shows every week. And it's not really an option for me to just do one show, because the same amount of research goes into that one show. In fact, it was much more efficient for me to do like 4 shows when I was doing all this work, because I'm already doing that 40 hours, so fuck it, what's another 3 hours? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this also is going to free me up. Like, there are certain things, to your guys' point about the media, and we will talk about the media in esports and how thin it is getting, but, we need to move into general gaming. Right. I want to do content on game releases. And the problem with games journalism I'm sure you guys know a million problems with game journalism, but one problem with games journalism is that access journalism has effectively crippled game criticism. Because if you are an IGN or a PC gamer, you cannot give a AAA game a bad review, because then the publisher or the developer, whether it's Ubisoft or Activision Blizzard or Microsoft or BioWare, whoever, will cut off your access to, well, we're putting this new class in our game, guys, and you're going to get some, hands-on experience playing this new class. And that is where they actually make their money, is breaking all these little stories, right? And so the problem is that it has created very, in my mind, perverse incentives for games journalism. And the other side of that coin is that there are a bunch of like reaction game channels that are just against everything that the devs are doing. It's like anything that they do, it's just some sort of violent reaction, like angry reaction to that, or it's some sort of scandal in some way. And I think that is very boring as well. And so I think there's a lot of room for LFN to have intelligent conversations about games and which games are good. And, you know, I care very much about games as art and good writing and indie titles and stuff that a lot of people don't pay attention to, that I'm very interested in. We also have more stuff we want to do on the Culture Channel. People have been begging for us to do an NFL show. Guys, I can't do an NFL show during Worlds. You know what I mean? Like, that was not possible previously. And maybe this coming year it will be. Right, I'd be interested in doing some shit.
I'm glad we didn't do an NFL show this fucking season as a Raiders fan. So that would have just
I got some thoughts on the playoff games that happened today. But you know, I think we could create a fire NFL show that wouldn't.
The Chiefs.
Fuck the Chiefs, exactly. That wouldn't. You know, I think our NFL show, it wouldn't be the world's sickest analysis because none of us are NFL experts. But I absolutely can. All of us can break through the narrative bullshit that surrounds these games. And provide interesting historical parallels or ideas and stuff like that. Like, I think for example, I was watching the Lions Commanders game today, and I tweeted this out, but I was like, has there ever been a game in NFL history where a team scored 31 points with a -5 turnover differential? And the answer is no, by the way, which is honestly kind of a testament to the Lions offense despite all of the turnovers, right? It was a very weird game. And I think there are really cool talking points like that could be brought up, but nobody's doing it. So yes, I am interested potentially in doing some NFL content. You know, Thorin and I have floated the idea of doing our graphic novel show that we've wanted to do for a long time. But there's all this stuff.
Got a working title for that one?
No. You have an idea for us?
No. Just obviously, usually Duncan's very good conceptually.
I thought you had something clever. Fuck, man.
So I thought it would be,
to do that yet. We haven't done that yet.
Okay.
But anyway, there are all these things we want to do, guys, and it's been very hard because I can't have the conversations with other people in other games. Like, we want to start Dota content. We want to start FGC content. I'm talking with these people now, but I haven't had the time to do all of these things previously. And that has made it very hard to, you know, our numbers are great, but it's made it hard to really focus on expansion. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, guys, is we just need to get bigger to keep growing the company and to get involved in more scenes, bring more interesting people on board who then we can get involved in the NFL or the culture content or whatever, right? Because part of the underlying thesis of LFN is we want to take all these esports people who have this incredible ability to be entertaining and insightful, unscripted, and then place them into other things, non-esports things that they are passionate about, and then grow that audience as well. Because frankly, like, TV and film has a much bigger audience ceiling than esports. General gaming has a much bigger audience ceiling than esports. And the Culture Channel has been our fastest growing channel since we launched it. So I think this stuff kind of proves itself.
Let's hope we survive the Gladiator 2 episode. Let's hope that doesn't tank us forever.
Richard's mentioning that we actually have 3 of the 4 episodes of the next arc already recorded. So you guys haven't even started seeing the first one of that arc yet, but the next one we're finishing up that arc this week, and it might be a rough one.
Oh, God, it's so bad. And I have to watch it again. I have to watch a movie twice. I pledged in the cinema in Romania I will never watch this again. And then we just didn't record it. But that was my bad, so whatever. I've done it to myself. It's my punishment for going out drinking instead of recording content.
That's fine. So I mean, you get double punished, I guess. The Hangover and the second viewing of Gladiator 2.
It's really bad. Really bad.
So anyway, guys, that's kind of where we're at with LFN right now and why things are happening the way they are. And I understand, obviously, that people are disappointed in some of the change in the direction. It's obviously very bittersweet for me doing Summoning Insight for 12 years to stop doing it. But I hope that this is the right move, right? No way to know.
Just to be an arsehole, I'll pretend like I agree with Mark Merrill and Riot, and esports will definitely be League of Legends for 10, 15, 20 years. So what's good is, Monty, when the kids are grown, we can just come back and keep doing it again. So no problem. See you in about 8 years. Yeah, they're off to school. Don't worry about it. You know?
When they're playing, of course, when they've played through high school, they've got their college scholarships in League of Legends, right?
Well, listen,
Riot at the time probably have the number one anime in the world, Meeches, Furfest, Bugfest 24, Poolskin, that'll be the biggest skin in the world. As an animation where he licks his own ass or someone else's ass, if there's another furry on the screen.
All the asses. No, but it's like it's why in many ways, it was so good of Mark Merrill to create Whole Cloth, another industry. In the form of animation for adults that we could talk about. I mean,
also Mark Merrill,
he has made everything we love: esports, anime.
Also, Mark Merrill was later heard saying that it's great
sexual
that League
harassment.
Of Legends
that's a joke.
That it was great that League of Legends exists because no one had made a MOBA previously. No one had thought.
That would be good. The joke is, at this point in time, they actually almost should just lean into it, Richard. Like, he should just do the Bill Hicks and go. Thing is, actually, daughter copied from me. The just annoying thing is they just did it all first.
Exactly.
Version of the Bill Hicks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, obviously what they do in North Korea, where it's like fucking, glorious leader invented the light bulb and all of that shit. Glorious leader. Mark Merrill got a hole-in-one the first time he ever played golf. Just stories like that.
Well, I do want to talk about the importance of LFN in the current esports media landscape.
This is something Duncan wanted to bring to the table. We've all kind of done our own little bits and pieces. So and I got some stuff for this. Obviously, broadly speaking, the games media and it's certainly its offshoot, its redheaded stepchild, the fucking esports media. I mean, it is dire where we're all at right now.
I think people know that in the bigger landscape that the mega sites died out. There are no like Yahoo Esports, ESPN. Those things died out. People get that the mega projects died out. What they don't seem to appreciate is actually the scene me and Richard came from of small Counter-Strike sites where you'd have, back in the day it was Read More, but there was the 99 Damage one for the German Counter-Strike scene. Obviously Dust 2 wasn't just US. If you don't know, they had like a US, a Denmark. They had a whole bunch of them that were around for different spaces. And you do what the Brazilian one, loads of these sites basically are dying off or dying out of. And so it's not just like one and one has problems. This is clearly another industry thing where people there's no money to invest into media companies. Nobody wants to own them, and they're not seen as valuable assets right now. And so a lot of them aren't even just struggling. They're just they've shut their doors already. And so it means that, for example, in Counter-Strike, you really are in a position where I'm not trolling. All you have is hltv.org and then people who are like leakers on Twitter. That's all we've got left. I mean, I'd even argue in League of Legends, at this point in time, League of Legends got ahead of us. Cheap esports is the only source of fucking news at this point in time. Like, that's the world. There are no Jacob Wolf skies. Like, the joke is, you're actually, if that fucking Michael Klementov or whatever does something, that's actually at least something vaguely independent. Like, the media landscape is completely barren right now. It is wild. Like, it's never been as bad as it is now. This is worse now, no joke, than in the early 2000s when there was no money in it. There was more sites than this. It's insanity.
Well, this is the key. This is the key aspect of it. That now, if you, and by the way, this is happening in real media. Not, by that I mean non-esports media. It's not real. These are all hacks generally. But obviously, as someone that talks a lot about American politics in my content, but not really just the politics, more how the media intersects with the politics. What's happening now is everyone's realized that if you want to command a 6-figure salary and live in a mega expensive coastal city in America, it's not really viable unless you are the hot shit. And unfortunately, when your opinion is pretty much in line with every other columnist and politico in America, which is, why Donald Trump is the worst thing ever for the millionth time. Donald Trump said this. If we take it literally and spin it in the most uncharitable way possible, it sounds like Mussolini. This game that they've been playing for 10 years. The American people are just bored of it and tired of it. And like there was a large subset of people that would never subscribe to it. It's one of the reasons why I've used this example many times. When I studied journalism, one of the things we did when we had to do our media literacy and we had to understand, what a chyron was and all the different framings of all the different news networks, we all sat there and belly laughed at Fox News. They put fucking Hannity on there or whoever it would have been at the time, and we all just sat there like, oh, fucking hell, this is what passes for news in America. And then we would see something somber by contrast, like CNN lauded for the first ever 24-hour news channel, and then fast forward to where we're at now, and everything is Fox News because that's what worked. And as soon as you sign over a newsroom to corporate interests and you need clicks and you need money and you've got to hit your ads and you've got to do this, it's like, look, we all laugh at Tucker Carlson using as a defense. I just play a character. No one would believe me. Rachel Maddow invoked the same defense. And I've said this for years. MSNBC goes further than Fox almost ever did, except maybe in the Obama years, in Obama's first term, where Obama wearing like a tan suit and holding a cup of coffee while he saluted a Marine was a national crisis because Fox News was stupid. So, look, what's happening now is all of these hacks that were at those big media companies, they can't command a salary anymore. They're deemed to be almost like a toxic asset by the news networks. Guess what they're doing? After maligning Substack and calling people, oh, you're a Substack man. Oh, Substack, a right-wing hotbed of bigotry. What next? A Rumble channel. Well, after doing all of that game, they're now moving to Substack en masse. It's happening. Chris Cillizza has done this. I mean, I had to laugh. Jen fucking Rubin, who between drinking box wine and luckily finding a Xanax in her handbag, she said she's moving to Substack now to create her own publication. The kicker is the name, The Contrarian.
That's amazing.
Contrarian. There's nothing contrarian about anything you've said about it for the past decade. What are you talking about? So anyway, who's going to pay for this stuff? And what they're banking on is that their names are big enough to command a subscription. And this is what is now happening in esports, that the actual journalists capable of doing real news and having a following and putting out opinions that people like, they're moving to independent publications. And so, well, you've got two choices. It's like that meme where you're staring at the road. One is a dark path and you become Jake Lucky and you just tweet out screenshots of things that you saw on fucking live stream fails that day. Or you can go and create a Substack and actually do your own reporting over there. The problem is one of those things gets access and clicks and attention, and the other, by and large, doesn't, because we don't do a good job of promoting these things. In fact, with the advent of the Savvy Games Group and all of that stuff coming in, they're actively blacklisting and shutting down publications, and at the same time, buying publications. This is another aspect to the paradigm. Rolling Stone, paid for entirely by Savvy Games. They're gaming and esports outlet. Every week, a new fluff piece. Why? Craig Torbal Levine is the greatest of all time. They even in one article called ESL a plucky upstart that went from like rags to riches. Like one of the most poisonous,
maybe
monopolistic...
15 years ago.
I mean, it's technically we all started from there. It's like saying how Thorin was once a collection of atoms floating through the universe to now the most hated man on Twitter. It's like it's just fucking crazy. It's just stupid framing. So anyway. All of which is to say that right now, independent media, it's got an opportunity, but it's very hard to realize it because not everybody can just hang in the pocket and think they make money. I understand I'm in a very blessed position because, I'm literally looking at the data now in front of me. I have 12,000 subscribers on my Substack, and 1,500 of those are paying $5 or above. A lot of people have bought the year package. And even though that's kind of like not insane numbers, it was enough to constitute me getting a Substack bestseller badge. And we are still trending upwards, despite the fact we've come out of a period where I didn't do a lot of content because I was working the major. So, if I could live just off that, if I never did another YouTube or another Twitch stream, worked another event, I could live off what I make from that. But like, not everyone is in that lucky position. And it's why I'm super grateful to my community. But like talking about Clementov, he's got his publication, which he is gamer handle is Leadergrev. He calls it Readergrev, his Substack. He's done some wicked stories. I mean, look, not everything he does over there is wicked. He did an interview with Ryan Friend, fucking formerly of Rush B Media, but to be fair, he actually showed signs of self-awareness in there. So who knows? You know, up is down and black is white right now, I guess. But but like he's done some really good stories. Do they get enough attention? Who's sharing these? Why aren't these going out on social media? Very often now it feels like social media is almost designed as an antithesis of what it used to be. Social media used to be really good at helping people blow up and get their stuff noticed. Now moderators decide if you're not from one of the established websites, we're just not going to allow your stuff on there. Because it could, we can't verify it's for, whether it's true or not. You were never meant to do that. You're moderators. My Substack stuff, every time it's submitted to the CSGO subreddit, it sits in purgatory because occasionally I have a paywalled article. And so they go, well, we don't allow paywalls. But that article isn't paywalled. Yeah, but it's on a website that has paywalls. So my stuff doesn't even get onto the CS subreddit right now. Think about that. And then like last year, it wasn't my best year for breaking stories. I mean, I kind of can't be asked anymore. I'll be real with you. I'd rather write opinion, rather talk about politics, rather just laugh at the fucking comedic state of esports. People want to pay for that. That's fine. If they don't, they'll let me know by unsubscribing. But, ultimately, I did break some big stories and, stories that didn't get a lot of attention because by the time a mod had gone, okay, we'll allow that one to be submitted. Somebody else had got hold of it or whatever. So it's like the sad irony is that if I was to recommend to anyone, if you want to model someone, like, do you want to be like formerly a Jacob Wolf who tried a Substack, right? Or a Kevin Hitt or a James Fudge or a Mikhail Klementov? If you wanted to be any of those guys, well, you better have some insane following from something else. You better have like a big YouTube channel already, or you better be popular in another field. Because otherwise, the thing to do is turn on monetization on Twitter and just pump out vacuous fucking nonsense. Mm-hmm. Because if you do that, then you're going to get more attention and more money.
I hope people understand. If someone's a casual, I'll briefly break it down. This isn't just like some sort of elitism or gatekeeping that we're implying, like Jake Lucky being your main news source. Because I'm sorry, if I had to actually explain, in League of Legends, the main news source of roster moves is Sheep Esports. But at least I'll say this, they do have some journalists that at least know some concepts of journalistic ethics and what you do and protocol stuff. Jake Lucky not only has none, seems to know none, he actively will tell you, I'm not a journalist, even though, by the way, sorry, dickhead, like Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart, you don't get to play that game when you clearly are LARPing as a journalist. And the whole joke is you're not just making jokes, you're saying the truth because you're not a journalist but pretending to be one, right? You're not even doing that. All he really does is, the reason he says he's not a journalist, guys, is because he is so routinely wrong and publishes completely false nonsense information he hasn't vetted that it's the only way he hasn't completely destroyed any credibility he has. Like, nobody has published more misinformation to more people in the history of esports journalism than Jake Lucky on his Twitter account. And that is now, unironically, the #1 source of news in gaming and esports, our cross-section of the space,
Not only that, but he's obviously taking outside money.
Even, by the way, he has been told 1,000,000 times by the journalists, you just put #ad, like Thorin does every time he does a betting sponsor post. Jake Lucky clearly knows that and intentionally refuses to do it. So he is also, by the way, pretending posts aren't ads knowingly. So I don't care what this person's excuse is. That is not an acceptable or in any way ideal scenario for the main journalistic person to be someone who says, I'm not a journalist. Now here's any old shite I saw on livestream fails 4chan or elsewhere on Twitter with no vetting. I'm just going to publish it on my account. And then if it goes wrong, sorry, and then just delete the tweet. Like, that cannot be journal. You can think whatever you want about Richard. He is 1 billion times better than that, no matter what you think about any political angle you can imagine. It's insane. That's what
also, Jake Lucky is very clearly, at minimum, getting fully paid trips to Riyadh to work on the Esports World Cup, but probably getting paid tens of thousands of dollars to do these things. Like, he gets paid to go to events to tweet about them.
I'll give you an example. The same Jake Lucky that has no opinion about Saudi Arabia and their regime literally cutting people's heads off during the same months that they have awards for Journalist of the Year and have tournaments. He's the person going, who hurt Thorin? Who hurt everyone in esports that they have people cutting people's heads off, paying them and lining their pockets? And as Monty just aligned, you, bro. How about you? Why do you work with people who behead people, dickhead? I just say things on Twitter. You actually work with real life murderers, bro. That's the fucking standards. And by the way, which one do you think, guys, is the reviled journalist that begrudgingly people accept the news from? Is it Richard Lewis, 20-year veteran of the industry, multiple times winner, actually even works as an actual real life professor of journalism, all that? Is it him, or is it Jake Lucky, the person I just said has zero standards, works with the most evil people in the world, and actually publishes any old shite that comes across his way? Which one do you think is like embraced and people ignore all the bad parts, and which one is reviled and begrudgingly you accept? You know the answer because you're in the upside fucking down right now, mate. Somehow it is the wrong way around on that one. It's actually mad, isn't it? It's so fucking mad. It's so mad.
I mean, to be fair as well, I did see an incredible take of his because it related to Counter-Strike. And by the way, I don't want to make this a Jake Lucky bashing session.
Oh, no.
I mean, what the fuck even is the
He's just the poster boy of this topic is the thing. Yeah.
No, you're right. He's blue steel for shit journalism. Yeah, you're right. But anyway, he did a tweet where it was like, the Mongols had announced that they weren't attending the Blast Bounty, and it was because like one of their players had a broken arm, and obviously they would have had to use a stand-in. And obviously, with the Valve ranking system being as it is now, if you attend an event and do bad, that's worse than not attending.
Yes.
Right? That's how that works.
Yep.
So anyway, obviously the Mongols were like, we're putting our players' health first. They put out some blanket bullshit statement. It's like, yeah, your player broke their arm. It's fine. And Jake Lucky used that and went, we should really normalize CS teams not needing to attend every single event. Shout out to the Mongols for putting player health first. It's like, no, bro. They're putting their rankings first, not their player health. Also, this isn't burnout or mental health or depression. He was fucking around and broke his arm, right? And then, on top of all of that, bro, have you seen what's happening in 2025? No one's attending every event. It's actually physically impossible. So guess what? It is normalized. His opinion fails on every single fucking level as an authority on this. And I'm just like, why? Why is CS people sharing this?
It's wild,
I really wish...
You know everything he's saying is
I really wish Jake Lucky would discuss the, mental health of LGBTQ people in Saudi Arabia. I think he should address some of these topics. He's very concerned about, burnout and all of these other things. What about the indentured servitude workforce that's going to build all of those World Cup stadiums?
Hey, listen, by the way, it's going to get pretty spicy if there's an esports stadium built, a specific one for esports, innit? Going to make a lot of people, because I'm still waiting to see what happens with this Kadia thing. I mean, again, I know we're all over the place in this episode.
Sure.
But buy the ticket, take the ride. Fuck you all if you don't like it, right? So, this Kadia thing, this Kadia agreement that these Esports World Club program recipients have agreed to. And by the way, that's expanding to 40 teams now. That's going to expand in 2025. So, what you agree to, if you want to get these stipends to run these teams, is that eventually you are going to have to spend some time in Kadia. The team's going to have to be there for a period of time using elite level training facilities, but also have access to the public to do certain engagements. But on top of that, you got to have an office in Kadia that you have operationally, and you've got to employ, I believe it was 3 Saudi Arabian residents in executive positions within your company. Well, I hate to break it to everyone. These teams aren't going to, not 40 teams are going to do that, right?
I mean, there aren't going to be 40 qualified candidates in a country as small as Saudi Arabia because they don't have any esports experience. Anybody.
So,
there.
but that if you want the delicious extras, that's what people are agreeing to. Again, this reporting was on the Esports Advocate, I believe. James Fudge did this story. So, look, I'm very intrigued to see where that's going, because some people are going to accept it and accept everything that comes with that, and then other people aren't. So that's something to keep an eye on in 2025. Funnily enough, just while we're also talking about this, did you, as an interesting media story, did you see what happened to the Esports Insider, ESI?
Yeah.
Oh, what happened?
Right, so I'll give you the cliffs because it's pretty long. But what I'll do is I'll also in our little secret group chat, and then you can decide which part you want to show in the broadcast, if any. Sam Cook, you remember Sam Cook, obviously. He was I believe, was the co-founder of Esports Insider ESI. He's certainly been there a long, long time. I think he's been there a decade or whatever, and he's leaving. And he's leaving to start something new. And I was like, well, okay, what's that going to be? Because obviously Esports Insider have come under a lot of flack because they are one of the media outlets that have been paid to go and do these interviews with, Prince Faisal and all these other things. I think they had a sponsorship from Kadia to promote that on their website. And anyway, what's happened is Esports Insider got bought, apparently. They got bought by a company. I think it's Clickout Media. It might be. And anyway, I think this is all breaking. So it's Clickout Media or Phoenixio, or it might be that they might be the same company. But anyway, they got, apparently behind the scenes, people are telling me they got bought by that. And what this company does is they do search engine optimization, like just slop. And they've been publicly criticized for this all across the internet. And anyway, so he's leaving after that's been kind of supposedly a deal done behind the scenes. And it makes me really fear for the future of ESI as a publication, because no sooner had I been told that had happened, look at this article. By a journalist I've never heard of, someone who has no background in esports, suddenly writing about the best esports betting sites in the US for 2025. Click on all of it. This is what Esports Insider are publishing now.
Yeah.
So, as I said, it's dark. It's cold in these streets for esports media, which is another reason why what we're trying to do is we're trying to fucking be this independent bastion of having a platform where people can talk about these topics. And yeah, sometimes we're going to be grandstanding. Sometimes it's not going to be very interesting. Sometimes we might even miss the mark. But at least we are able and free to talk about those things at a time when, as I said, Saudi are literally buying up publications. Webedia, who sold the Esports World Cup brand to EWC solely so there wouldn't be an ESWC-EWC conflict in the future. Not because they care about the prestige of the history of that particular brand, which is checkered at best. They're doomed, apparently. That's a portfolio of like 100 websites all across Europe, maybe more. You know, it's like it's dark times for media, and unless you're able to move across and do stuff independently, then there really isn't. You know, you are going to have to go do a Jacob Wolf and go and do a real job in a complete other industry.
I think in LFN's instance, you know, it's hard, as you point out, Richard, to get yourself to the point where it is sustainable, but like that's what we've been spending the last several years doing. So we're over the worst of it now, right? And I think like you just have to have the stomach to just do it. You know?
Oh yeah.
But like most people, when presented with the option for, I mean, startups are just fucking hard, and you're going to like just not get money for a while in a lot of startups. And especially if you want to maintain control over the company, you know, and, you know, in our case, we didn't take investment, so we didn't have to sell any ownership of the company. You know, that's a good thing now, but it did make it suck for a while, like suck a lot. And so I think most people just don't want their lives to suck for that long in order to do what needs to be done. Or they can't. You know, they're not in a financial position where that's an option.
Which is
Oh,
another
that is
reason
one
why
thing I
the
will say.
esports advocate is so remarkable. You know, it's all
for James, for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's one thing I think people don't actually seem to realize about the stakes that we're talking about. Whereas Monty pointed out, we turned down the millions of dollars that it turned out would have been from the Saudis, but we thought was just from some ex-Faceit people. Is for anyone else, the option there isn't, do you take the money or do you run it? It's just, you just not do the project. You'd have to just shut the doors tomorrow, pretty much. If we didn't take that money, because if you don't know, all three of us in this chat make our actual living not from this company. We have to do essentially a real job. All the people out there tell you can't make it. We have to do a real esports job and then on the side to do this as like a hobbyist/startup thing and hope that one day, as well as accomplishing our goals with media, it pays us an actual salary, etc. Yeah. Like, it's not like we're saying you can just do what we're doing. Our model doesn't even work for us. We're making it work by earning elsewhere and giving our efforts to this. Yeah. That's why people don't seem to appreciate that angle. It's not like we have some cynical thing where this made us money. We actually did lose a lot from this.
Right. I mean,
it was the right thing to do. Yeah.
In terms of me, like I took consulting, like part-time consulting gigs. I was streaming.
Housemates and moved to another country.
I sold my house and moved to Korea.
Yeah, that's not a minor thing. Now, look, I will say, Monty, you were sort of ahead of that thing of where you lived, in the city of LA with that house. That might have been the right time to sell that house. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Some say the timing incredibly suspicious.
Right. Okay.
Look, I know shit went wrong in LA, but let's just put it this way. Where my house was, shit would have to go insane, like 20 times more wrong than this went for that house to burn
20 times the level of Democrat involvement. I'm kidding.
I mean, it's just
to be talking LEC format explainer levels of scale of magnitude, right, Monty?
That's right. Yeah, 27x the average fire. Just because it was in mid city, so it's like, but my house, I sold it, but it was like between downtown and Santa Monica on the 10, which means it's in an island of concrete so large that it would have to be like the fire
Monty,
to end all fires.
It's the question that I'm going to ask, like I'm just doing it with a shit-eating grin rhetorically, but I actually also mean it for real. I think you should actually address this. Monty, the ultimate excuse to take the Saudi money is you have young children. That is the ultimate excuse. Everyone normally forgives you if you say that excuse. Everyone goes, well,
you see, here's the thing.
You do it.
Some people are like, I have a family, so I must take the evil money. To me, that's the opposite reason, because you're like, I have a family. I probably shouldn't use this as an example to my children of what you should or shouldn't do. And it's like, I will say that with confidence. So the reason why this was less of a risk than other things that could be done is because we never had a product problem. Like day one, we were basically doing 1 million podcast downloads a month. We did not have an issue with the product. What the problem was is that we had to wait for the advertising to catch up, right? But the podcast industry is a very known quantity, and so we knew it would catch up eventually. So it did make it, to be fair, less risky, right? Because it's like, we know what podcast ads are worth. We have X number of slots on the podcast. If we fill 50% of their slots, this should be the revenue that we're making. And that number is a very good number, right? And now we're getting to that point. Like this year, like I said, this is like the big year for us, I think, where we really break out. But it just took that time because you have to build the relationships with the agencies and the advertisers, and they have to know who you are. So that's why when we started the Sackdown, for example, we were able to get advertisers on that very quickly, because when we went and we said, hey, we've got this great new show, our advertisers and our agencies were like, oh, we know LFN. They do great. Put stuff on there immediately, right? So we're playing a different game than we were 2 years ago when we went out and everybody, we're like, look at our big podcast. And they're like, what the fuck is this? Who are you? That doesn't happen anymore, right? So it really was a matter of getting to this point. But because it wasn't, to your point about the Substack, the problem with people who started these Substacks is that they had a product problem in that they didn't have readers on the Substack, right? It wasn't like, here's a bunch of readers that already exist. All I have to do is flip the switch that says people can subscribe to me, and then there's the money. We had the viewership. That wasn't a problem. We had built that over 10 years of Summoning Insight and other shows on the channel. That wasn't going to be the issue. So I think that's the big difference, is that it's a lot scarier if you're somebody who doesn't have that audience because it is doubly daunting to try and build that audience while trying to monetize that audience simultaneously. We only had that one problem. We only had the monetization problem. And that it wasn't like we were in some sort of unknown universe of like, oh, there aren't advertisers for this thing. It's like there's a gazillion advertisers for this thing. So it didn't feel like a huge gamble. It was annoying, but it has been annoying, but it's not like, oh, this company sucks, or, even this company has no value, because at the end of the day, the product was good enough that the company obviously had value. So even if we were to, let's just say we're like, shit, everything's fucked up and we have to sell this thing tomorrow, it still has a lot of value to somebody, a bigger podcast company, most likely. We just want to, we don't want to do that. And we, maybe eventually we sell to a bigger podcast. Maybe Spotify buys us someday like The Ringer did. I don't know. But I would like the company to be bigger and worth more so that we all make more money.
And the joke is, in that sense, you are actually on the same page as Riot because they just want to have more autonomy. And that's one thing we obviously value. So that the one sense, that is one value we do.
But the difference is, Thorin, is that if we were Riot, we would have sold all of our company to Tencent already. And not gotten as big as we possibly could have.
And if we were going to viewbot, I would have just viewbotted only my shows. So it looks to Monty like I'm the true alpha who has all the viewership. He's just some guy following along with me. He's just my Ed Norton or whatever that guy. What was that fucking guy? Ed McMahon. There you go. I've just realised I've done an even worse version of By the Numbers because that's like a reference from the 60s or something. Like, okay, fair enough.
We got to get you. We got to bring you up. We got to, please. I'm begging you, just at least start at the turn of the century, Duncan. Please.
All right. Well,
but yeah. Look, so that's pretty much that. I mean, look, I'm not trying to toot our own horn or anything like that, but it's it's a pretty desolate place if you want to like actually get any meaty critique about things that are going on in esports, particularly from a business and development perspective. There's just not really a lot of that out there. I mean, the Esports Advocate pretty much stands alone as a publication, particularly now. And then obviously you've got the podcasting set, but we're actively suppressed on a number of social media platforms. You've got Elon Musk, Mr. Free Speech. He suppresses Substack links on his on a platform. You don't get a lot of reach. In fact, like for context, I can tell you this because I'm doing my Gonzo Awards, which are the alternative awards for everything that's bad about esports every year. Although I must say, kind of superfluous this year because nobody was sucking their dick at the end of 2024. Usually the reason you do it is everyone's like patting themselves on the back going, yeah, look at all these cool things I did. Look at all the things I achieved. Esports is in the best place it's ever been. Can't wait. Let's get this bread in 2025. No one was saying that at the end. There was none of it. I didn't see a single post where I was like...
By the way, Richard, I do appreciate that, our fortunes are not the same as esports fortune where I'm like, yeah, 2025 looking really good for us. Everybody else is like, this shit fucking sucks.
Yeah, I know. So it kind of feels like a needlessly cruel addition to do the Gonzo Awards this year. But anyway, I was doing them. So here's context, right? I obviously have like 120,000 followers or whatever it is on Twitter. It might be more. I don't know. Who gives a fuck, right? So when I tweet out a Substack link, I would expect reasonable amount of my followers would see that, engage with that, share that. Maybe their followers would, that's how it works. That's what the point of it. I got a total of, out of the thousands of people that engaged with the article, 2% came from Twitter. And for context, it got submitted to Reddit where it was downvoted, didn't make it to the front page, nowhere near, not even the third page of the CSGO subreddit. That also contributed 2%. That's how much they suppress Twitter if you post Substack links. Meanwhile, if I was to like live stream my like gameplay footage on there, it would be boosted by Twitter's own algorithm, and I would supposedly get 20,000 people watching me live. None of which is true. So it's like just a really weird space.
That's because the Twitter view thing counts every view in total. Click. So it's not concurrent. View, It's literally just a total. It's a running total of everyone who has clicked it, even for 1 second.
Which we hilariously saw with the Esports World Cup again. Look at this.
Makes it easy to viewbot those numbers too, because they have to access it for like a fraction of a second before clicking out. They don't even have to sit there and watch it.
Yeah. So I mean, look, it's just like you say, it's not everyone's going to be able to do kind of what we're doing. I'd like to see more people do it. I could think of a number of people I think could like go independent and create their own kind of podcasts and create their own websites and Substacks and content and be in a place to be critical of a lot of things that are going on here. We're already seeing people, by the way, break away from the orthodoxy of the esports awards and create their own awards ceremonies and try and keep them, insulated from there. And the winner is Falcons, presented by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. All rise, all rise. It's like, we have to move away from all of that, because that just needs to be its own hermetically sealed bullshit. That needs to be adjacent. That needs to be esports adjacent. People need to start asking the question, which esports are you into? The Saudi esports or the real esports? It needs to be like that. We just need to get away from it, like professional and amateur, however you want to kind of divide it, and that we want to be free from that bubble, so we can look into that bubble and essentially laugh and ridicule what is going on in that bubble, even if in some cases it is our friends and colleagues that are just temporarily in that bubble. It has to be that way. It's not done maliciously, but it is done to highlight some key aspects to the business that have changed and are changing, and ultimately, on a long enough timeline, they're going to change back. Saudi is not in esports forever, by the way, guys, and I hope I'm still around to remind a few people that made that excursion over to there when they come back and go, listen, guys, let me explain. Like the cheating husband. Let me explain what I was doing when I was bunked up with that woman that's now left me for years, neglecting my own children. Let me explain. There was context to that. I didn't know what I was doing.
But
I was having my own midlife crisis.
Let me explain how truly I had the moral high ground the entire time, just like I did before. Well,
I expect that of you, obviously, Monty.
By the way,
that was me being that, Richard. Stop it.
Even though this is slightly different, my favorite was there was someone on one of those like third-party CS sites. I don't think it was the BO3 one, but it was one of those like you vaguely remember them, but they're not like a massive site. There was someone who very early in the ESL being sold shit did do a think piece where the premise of the think piece was, but since esports loses money, isn't it a good thing that the evil Saudis are buying it? And I just thought, holy fuck that you've even sat down and wrapped yourself up like a pretzel over that fucking one to try and find a way that it's good.
I know.
Like, what I'll never understand about that is why wouldn't that logic apply to everyone, mate? By your logic, you should want like actual like gun runners from North Africa to be involved, drug cartels. Essentially, your logic is esports is such a bad industry, you lose money. We should just get every evil person to lose their money in esports. Like,
listen,
it's the craziest actual
I'm
I've ever heard of.
Maybe drug cartels would be a step back in the right direction. Like,
okay,
you know what I mean? Maybe.
Feels more honest in a way.
Yeah, right. They're killing you to, stop them being arrested. They're murdering you to cause fear among certain, population groups where they operate. They're not doing it because you're gay.
It's true.
They're
equal opportunity killers.
Escobar 2025, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Escobar Invitational. It's ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. But anyway, all of which to say, 2024, I had a lot of fun doing the last Free Nation stuff, and obviously we'll continue to do it to the best of my ability in 2025. Not intending on going anywhere. Extending the Four Horsemen. Me and Monty keep flirting with the idea of a Deep Space Nine podcast, which I don't even know how that would work or if anyone would watch it. Probably wouldn't, right? But
I think they would. Like there's a bunch of boomer nerds like us who love that.
That's
show.
what we need. That's what's really going to put Last Free Nation over the top, tapping in to the Deep Space Nine market. Once we do that,
2025.
Yeah, in 2025. Yeah, most of the cast is dead, but listen.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.